There we go.
Hey everyone, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture. I'm your host, Andrew Davis, and this episode is brought to you by my sponsors, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy from their instant code calculator. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, and of course it just has to do that in the middle of my sponsorship out of nowhere, but it wouldn't be an episode without me. But as I was saying, obviously, Mixum is an amazing printing company, and they have printed so many successful Kickstarters. A bunch of them you have even heard about on this very show, and they offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now, they're running a promotion where listeners of my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tip of a current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. So that is Mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive a 5% discount on your first order. And without further ado, I have with me comic creator and game designer Chris Brown. So welcome to the show.
How you doing?
I am doing good because you actually bought a bunch of guaranteed guest spots. You bought a live read, and you're making this actually happen. So I am beyond appreciative of all of that and people actually wanting me to continue what I'm doing and my project and all the interviews that I'm doing. So I am very grateful for that. But welcome to the show because you got a lot going on.
Yeah. And what's really fun is you mentioned Mixum. That's who printed my first book, and they're going to print my second one. So, yeah.
I like Mixum a lot.
Them as well.
So I like Mixum a lot, and I like what they do, and I like the fact that they have a very cool way that you could do layouts, and it's almost like a digital proof. And I haven't printed a comic book yet, but at some point when I have a better, polished story, and I could actually pay my artist for the art, because that's very important in a lot of ways. Yeah. But you have going on right now, Welcome to Slaughterville.
Yes.
And that's a comic, it's a game. Yep. It's some other stuff that's happening as well. And so I figured we would touch upon what is the basic premise of the game for those who don't know about it.
Good. Slaughterville. Wow, that's been out since early 2000s, 2015, 10, around there. And what it is it's if you like horror movies, that's this game. See, what happened is I started playing the more modern board games, and it's like you have to pull down a different box to play a different game, right? So what we did with Slaughterville is we made that thing modular, and every villain that we have in there, which is based on different yet legally distinct from IPs and properties, like we have the Dream Demon instead of, and each one changes up how the game plays. Now you still go through and you build up the town of Slaughterville, using 6 of our, I think it's up to 18 locations now, and you choose one of our 12, 24-ish villains that we have, and you take the typical horror movie character and you try to go through the town finding items, clues, and allies in order to stop these villains. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, because it's very interesting, and I like tabletop games. I really do.
Oh, good.
And so I'm not a huge tabletop game. I like Catan. I played a few others. I like, I think it's Kings of Tokyo is what it's called, and I love that game because I'm just a big kaiju fan.
Yeah.
And then I've played, shoot, I can't think of its name. It's a Knights with like you place catapults, and if you get 10
Shadows over Camelot.
Yes, I love that game because I love being the bad guy. I love it. I like when I know I draw the bad guy card. I love it. But this is very much a cooperative game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we are mainly co-op. Like this is our Dracula villain here. It's just a card back, and then each card is themed and it has a story that goes along with it, and you play through and try to work together to win. Now we do have Demon Razor. And the Demon Razor is not based on Hellraiser at all, but this one actually is competitive. So, you can play all kinds of different ways. Everything from tower defense is in here to the slasher, which is the subject of our second book. And that's just straight trying to kill you. In fact, we were just testing You can see all the marks on it. This guy here is the Bee Man, not based at all on Candyman. And in playtest now, because we have Slaughterville 3, that's coming in April. So we're going to launch that one in April.
We're going to talk about all of Slaughterville history, and then we're going to, obviously, you have the comic. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, because I do like who you have doing some art on that book. But we're not going to spoil it. We're not going to spoil it, I promise. I want to keep everybody engaged. It's a big name for Marvel. But what was this like really building out? Because obviously you did Slaughterville 1, or just Slaughterville, and then you have a bunch of locations. And as you progressed into Slaughterville 2 and 3, you've obviously added more, and they act almost as expansions versus an individual game. But you can add on to it, and then it changes it, and then now you're up to 24 villains, to 18 locations, and then different ways you can play the game. And so what was that like, really building out the basic concept, knowing you were going to add to it? Because sometimes games don't do that well.
Yeah, and that was what I wanted to build in from day one, was modularity. It was always about, I want to be able to take any of our different locations, any of our different villains, and just drop them in at any time. I wanted you to make this game what you wanted it to be. See, because I always liked telling stories. Because I've written books, besides the comics, I've had a novel published and all that, and I've always liked telling stories. Well, I want this game to let you tell a story. What did you do when you walked into the town? Did you go to the school? Did you find a severed foot with a shoe in it? What happened?
Because that's more of a D&D feel, where it's kind of like this game has definitely got it, and it's still pointing, and there has to be an end. And there's certain things you can do, but it's almost like a hybrid of Dungeons and Dragons, and the game acts almost like a dungeon master to some degree, where you have a bunch of choices, but you still have a lot of freedom. Right. And that's different than like Shadows over Camelot or Catan or Kings of Tokyo, which are just dice rolling games and fun games. There's no role playing aspect to it. And that's something that I think is interesting about this game, because it sort of hybrids the two. But D&D scares me a little bit.
Yeah, it can be daunting. There's a lot of good RPGs out there, and we don't have a Slaughterville RPG yet. So that's something I thought about, but it's definitely. This definitely takes a lot of the overhead off of it, because you still have the stats on the characters, you still have abilities, but they're more streamlined.
Because it's definitely changes the game, and I feel like there's things that are similar to this out there, but there's not a lot of things that do this that really allow you to have a lot of control in the game. And it's not Clue either, where because that's what I thought about when I was reading it. And obviously, I went through your Indiegogo and I went through the Kickstarters, and it's not Clue, in which it's not as tame as Clue, but it's got a little bit of aspects of Clue in there. But it's also, you still have a major villain, which is the game. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is that you're not playing, you're working with everybody at the table. And that is a cooperative game, and it's you versus the game versus in other things. And so what was that like building that out? Because you also have to make sure that the game is challenging enough and that the players aren't overly powered. Because I'm presuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the game could beat the players.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. The thing that most people expect about the cooperative games is for them to be challenging, for them to not so much beat you down, because you have to have a way to win, but for it to be more difficult. And we were just playing the Sleeper. We were play testing him, and it's based on the Creeper, Jeepers Creepers, and he just absolutely destroyed us 3 games in a row. So I'm like, okay, we got to work on this here. So I've been tweaking it and modifying it so that it's easier, so it's possible to win, but it's still challenging.
So what is that like? Because I would imagine that certain villains that you're fighting against are easier and are more at an easy level, and then there's probably an intermediate level, a hard level, and then almost an impossible level, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so what is that like? Because different villains obviously have different storylines and different components. And what is that like to almost create saying, okay, we last week played this character. Let's see if we could up the ante because now we're functioning as a group. Because if you're playing the game for the first time and maybe you're not functioning as a group, you got to figure out how to even work in your own confines outside of the game per se. And so, what is that like to really provide a lot of replay value? Because that's a big issue in games.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something I really wanted because we have over 70 characters in the game, and so you have plenty of variety of choosing who you'd like to be, and with the villains alone, like we have the slasher. The slasher is your basic Jason Voorhees type, and she's not really complex as far as the rules go. She's just straight up trying to kill you. And now she's strong, powerful, of course, as a Jason character would be. But then you come to the Ancient Burial Ground, or which was Poltergeist, Dracula, and so on. And what the main thing is it's not so much trying to get the mechanics or the mechanisms, however people like to say it, down. It's what does it feel like? Does this feel like you're actually there doing this? And once we get that down and make it challenging, then we feel it's usually ready to go. Then we send it out to be tested by others who, weren't with us when we were play testing it. Just like the bee man, we just had him, and he's all about attacking you with bees and breaking down your life, your ability points, your stats, until you get to the point where you fall under his power. You can't take it anymore. You have to join him. And so yeah, it's neat being, or like the zombie horde is trying to destroy the entire town. So that's more of a tower defense, and it has a flick 'em up thing where you actually flick a bullet disc and try to shoot a target. Yeah.
And so what is this like? Because now when you start going into things like that, where obviously you could join the villain, and then I'm not too sure if you get knocked out of the game or you still have ability to do certain things or you're out for a certain amount of turns, or even when you start saying, hey, you can flick a bullet and you could actually hit a zombie. Now you're changing the game as well, where there's now a physical aspect to the game, and it's now not anymore on a board per se or in a place card or a card game, because now there's a physical element to it. So what is that like to even bring that into it? Because that adds another level to it now.
Yep.
And obviously when you go into expansions, and also it's the idea that you have to evolve per se and you have to become different as well when you're designing games. So what is that like to really even come up with a concept like that?
Okay, like I said, we wanted all different types of games in this box, and when we were looking at it, the thing that people like to do, of course, in the zombie movies, you want to shoot the zombies, right? So we wanted to give you a way to be able to actually shoot the zombies without, little Nerf guns included. So we made up this target board, almost like a shuffleboard kind of thing, where you flick your bullet disc and try to shoot and kill these zombies. Now you mentioned player death, and that was something I had to learn and grow myself on. Was when we had Slaughterville 1, you could be eliminated and die, and in an hour-long game, that's gonna suck, So for Slaughterville 2, we completely rewrote it, where you don't die anymore. Now, any villain that needs to kill all the players only has to kill a certain number of characters. So if you die, you lose your stuff, but you get a new character like you just walked into the gates of town. So yeah, you come back.
That's interesting. The fact that because now that's super interesting because I like games where you can knock somebody out. In Dungeons and Dragons, you could be knocked out, and technically, if you're doing a short campaign, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're doing a 52-week campaign and you get killed in episode or week 3, you're screwed. But if you get killed in episode 49, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
All things considering, if it's necessary for the story to be complete. But that's very interesting because obviously, if you get knocked out 20 minutes in, you now got to wait around for 40 minutes. And
yep.
It's kind of fun.
Get a new character, continue on.
That's so interesting, and that's also extremely inclusive as well in a lot of ways. And that definitely also, I would imagine, changes game dynamics per se with strategy and other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to rebuild some of the villains in order to accommodate that, and that's why we have the Slaughterville Director's Cut, which is being printed now. So it reprints the first game, but it updates it to the new Slaughterville 2 mechanics so that it accounts for all of the characters can't die thing. I mean, the characters can die; they just new ones come in. Players don't die.
You can't get eliminated. Your only thing is your character gets eliminated.
Exactly.
And so what is that even like? Because obviously we're going to talk about comics in a second, but
Yep.
one of the things about it is that people who build big series out there, they have what is known as a Bible and a comic Bible, meaning that this character will never be in a nude scene, for instance, or
Exactly.
this character will never ever date, this type of guy, for instance, or this character says the following catchphrases, or vice versa, or there will never be a nuclear weapon in this book as a
Mm-hmm.
Bible. And so, what was that like? Because obviously, you reworked the mechanics, and I don't know how that affected the game's Bible or manual or source material, whatever you want to call it. But what was that like figuring out saying, okay, this is what our core is, but how do we make the core better? Type of thing. Because it's tricky when you start modifying and tinkering.
Yep. Yeah, what we had to end up doing with that was well, what's nice is the core gameplay is still the same. You move to locations, you can explore the locations. It was the villains we had to modify. So ones that would say things like you have to kill every player in order to win. Now they say instead kill a certain number of characters to win, or gain a number of special items to win. So yeah, there was some tweaking that we had to do, but a lot of it wasn't so bad. It was actually because of the way we designed it in the beginning to be so modular. Just dropping a new one in just felt natural. It was pretty cool.
And then obviously, you had Slaughterville, then you had Slaughterville 2, which just adds further, and then you tweaked it, and then you have the director's cut, which sort of plays into Slaughterville 2's mechanics,
Yep.
but redoes Slaughterville 1 into that entire chain. And I'm presuming, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that if you have Slaughterville 1, you could just directly connect it into Slaughterville 2, or the director cut fits right into that, and
Yep.
you could pretty much pick up and start with wherever you want, depending on where you came into and you found it, right?
Yeah. So far, everyone has been standalone. In other words, you can grab. I have a copy of Slaughterville 2 sitting here right next to me because we were testing. You could buy that. It's standalone. It has 6 locations in it. It has our villains in it. Now, Slaughterville 3 will not be standalone. That's just going to be 3 villains that we're putting out for people. But yeah, you can drop them into any version you want, and they'll play.
No, that makes sense. And then I'm presuming you're gonna have a Slaughterville 4, and it's just now those Slaughtervilles just become expansions for more
Yep.
or less, and it just adds more and more dynamic, and it refreshes the game as well in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do want to talk about, though, the other side of all of this, and obviously the more, I guess, business side, where you did fund on Kickstarter
Yeah.
all of these.
Yep.
And so what was that like? Because tabletop games are semi big on Kickstarter, and they do very well. And it's also a very easy way how to get direct to your customers. And so what was that like to really say, hey, we're bringing this to Kickstarter, and even make that choice? Because now Kickstarter is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now. Yeah. Yeah. It was nerve wracking at first, to be honest with you, because everybody wants day one, hour one funding, but 99.9% of you are never going to get it. Okay, it's not. It's going to be the marathon up until the end. Everybody
I
would
know
love
that.
to.
I know that very much. Very, very, very nerve wracking. Your week one is not a good week.
Yeah, everybody loves the stretch goals, and we'd love to give them all. I'd love to give everything away, but and that's what it is. You have to make sure you're engaging with people. You're talking to them all the time. Let them know that they're a part of it with you. That they have it. That they're invested in it. So that's why I call everybody the citizens, because they're citizens of Slaughterville. They're part of it.
Yeah, and even just, obviously kickstarting a tabletop game or a board game is different than doing a comic. It's
Yeah.
different than doing a podcast. It's different than doing a movie. But a lot of the same things are still relevant. I pushed really hard, and I'm sure you pushed very hard and still push hard when you're going to kickstart all this stuff.
Yep.
And it's also the idea that you got to introduce people and you got to let people know that you exist. But and I'm curious, like, because I don't know the tabletop community on Kickstarter
Mhm.
at all. And so, what is that community even like? Because all I know is that every year there's like 4 or 5 big games that are licensed games. Like Avatar: The Last Airbender had a tabletop game that did really well, for instance. But
Mhm.
I don't know the other components of the RPG and tabletop games. But what is that like in that community on Kickstarter?
Uh, Brutal honesty, there are a couple of months to avoid because when the larger Kickstarters are coming out. Like they're doing a Batman one soon with all these miniatures, which is pretty cool. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, it's a Batman RPG with all these minis that come with it. There's no chance I'm gonna launch next to that because that's gonna take up a lot of the available funds and a lot of the available backers there. Um, but yeah, most of them, I'll be honest, most people that I've ever spoken to have been super friendly. Like even if they're these big name Kickstarters, or uh, all the way on up to people like me that don't, I've sold a few games and the comic book, but they're all willing to talk, and that's what you got to be. You have to be willing to share. You have to be willing to be help out the other person.
Yeah, it's very weird in which that I mean, I've interviewed a lot of big names, and you'd be surprised. They're like, "Oh, thank you for asking. I don't get asked for an interview." I'm like, "Really?" Like, and like meanwhile, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and I'm like, "How did you not get asked for an interview? Here's my
Yeah.
phone number. Just call me whenever you want." Like, it's a very weird thing, and I wasn't expecting that, and I still am not expecting that. And like I'll shoot somebody a message like, "Want to do it in like 10 minutes?" I'm like, "Excuse me, I need to prepare." Like, but like it's weird where it's very few, and I'm sure you run into a few people where very few people are actually very mean in the comic world
Right.
collectively, or in the tabletop world. I would imagine is the same for
Yeah.
you. And it's unfortunate though that it's the mean stories that get the attention, and it
Yeah, there
ruins
are
it.
there are some people that are unwilling or antagonistic, but like you said, very very few and far between, and I just ignore them.
I just say, okay, cool, you're on
Yeah,
the list, and I'm not going to
thanks
hit
for
you up.
that.
No, no worries. I don't need to be burned twice. And sometimes, somebody's having a bad day,
Yeah.
and 6 months later, you're like, hey, and like, oh, hey, how you doing? And everything's good. But I digress right there. But I do want to talk about the other side of Welcome to Slaughterville and the entire Slaughterville world, and that's the comic. And obviously, you have the game, and the game came first.
Yep.
But what made you want to do a comic book? Because that's a whole different media. It's a whole different medium. It's a whole different set of rules. And what prompted that? And what were you
Uh, go
thinking?
ahead.
No, 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 no. I was just gonna say, what were you thinking?
Again, I've always been a storyteller, and I like stories. I like hearing the stories, whether it's from D&D or whether it's from movies, TV, whatever you have. I like new stories. And when I was looking at the Slaughterville stuff, I'm like, there are so many stories in here behind these scenes that people just don't know. Like when I'm writing the cards, I'm like, there's this character, and I've built a whole backstory for him. Nobody knows about it. So I wanted to give people my story, the one that I had in here, my tail of the tape, if you will.
So to even talk about that, because obviously, I would presume, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you're building the game out, if you have 6 characters to start, and then you add another bunch, and then another bunch, you need to have an idea of some of their backstory in order to properly build out their abilities, build out what they're doing, and all that stuff. But you can't just give that to everybody and allow them to run with the game. I mean, you could say character A is a girl, character
Yep.
B is a boy, character A is 18, character B is 16. You could give them the idea that what what happens is that I'm sure that you have so much stuff of a certain character, and you're like, I want to tell more and I want to give more information. And then how'd you pick upon Beth, which is what the first novel deals with?
Right. Yeah, like for each of these things, I have what I call my design document, and the design document just has all their backstories, and it has all of their information, and the same with even the location cards. What do I want to say? What mini story do I want to tell with this location? Like the residential neighborhood, if you go through it, you're going to meet these things called the duplicates often, and throughout the cards, it tells you a story of um, how people are being replaced, like kidnapped, hidden, replaced by these duplicates. And that's again just one of the many different stories we have through there. Like the farm has a whole story of the people at the farm are into this supernatural. They're sacrificing people in the fields, and again that unfolds through the cards. But I came up with all of that story for each location, and I'm like, I'd like to tell that. And with Beth, um, Beth was based on one of the character archetypes. I'll learn to speak one day.
It's okay. I can't speak, and I've been doing this for 10 years.
But she's based on one of the character archetypes, and I'm like, uh, so what does she? What's her motivation? What does she feel? What is she? Why is she there? Well, she lost her little sister earlier in her life in the town, and that's in the first 2 pages of the book. So we're okay. I'm okay with that one getting out. But and she had to leave. She couldn't stand being in there anymore. Well, now something happened to her other sister. That's what's bringing her back. So
Yeah, so to even talk about that, because obviously Beth is based off of a certain character in the game, but I don't think Beth is a character, at least not yet. At least not yet.
I did for the comic book for the first graphic novel. We did give out 2 promos. One was John and one was Beth. They're allies that you can shuffle into any location, so you can come across them. You can find them in the game.
We're going to talk about that in a second, but because that's interesting, and obviously I know other companies that have done cards, and they have a card game and they have a comic, and they
Mm-hmm.
put 2 random in there purposely. I'm a big, I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic the
Mm-hmm.
Gathering. The video game stuff always had cards in them, and that was always cool.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things is that what was that like though? Really building out Beth and also building out the town and giving a lot of background on the town and what happened or what was one possibility of what happened. Because that's sort of, and the reason why I say it that way is you have multiple ways that this game can go depending on the villain. And so, what was that like? Because you have to keep certain things the same, but the town
Yeah.
location can't change,
Right.
and certain locations can't change based on the game. But what was it like saying, "Hey, this is how Beth remembers it," or "This is what's going on with her and with these entities that brought her back," for better word.
Yeah. That was how I looked at it. Is I went through it and I was like, what is their story to tell? And actually, when you get through and I have this planned out for 12 to 16 issues. So this is going to be a long haul thing. Um, this story is a lot about not only them, but the tall, thin man, who you meet in the book too. It's also his story, and I just again one of the fun things I did is I would go through the locations, the cards, and I would pick certain cards out, and I'm like, oh, they went through this and this and this, so it would create that connection to the game as well. But yeah, if they never felt real, and there have been so many rewrites that and I'm sure you've read more than enough comics where the dialogue just sounds god awful. Okay, where you can tell this doesn't sound like a real person.
There's a concept where it just misses, and I'm sure you've read things where the concept is brilliant and it is a disaster either on art, on dialogue, or even just how they're speaking. And then you've read books where I'm like, yeah, I don't even need dialogue. One of my favorite books of all time is Bang Tango, and
Yeah.
that thing is an amazing. I mean, it is a nearly perfect graphic novel. It's I think it's 6 issues, and it's just a nobody knows that book, and it is an amazing book. It was way ahead of its time, and it is beyond topical now, but it's the idea that just the way everything was put together in that book, unbelievable. But then I read another book and I'm like, man, this is rough. Especially Some Kickstarters are really rough. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah. But yeah, I had to make them feel like and maintain the consistent person. I mean, of course, you're going to have character growth as things go, and you should. But it was important to me that they had these, like, Superman is going to have a core set of characteristics. He's not going to deviate unless something drastic happens that forces this. And that's what I wondered for them too. Like you said, the character Bible, they will always be this way until or unless something drastic happens. And go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to even ask and really just even talk about also with this is that obviously this is a graphic novel. And one of the things that you have that sort of is helpful is that you have all of these cards and you also have tested a bunch of games. And so you could sort of test an idea of what would it look like in gameplay if they went to the farm or they went to the school or they went into a certain part of the town or another location or outside the town, for lack of a better word. And but it's also the idea that a graphic novel has to drive the story, and the reader cannot choose in a graphic novel where the story is going. What a reader can choose is how somebody speaks per se, if they're speaking, what emotions they're speaking in, how fast, how slow, how much time has passed by in their speech. Is it 10 seconds or is it a minute and a half? Those are controls that a reader has in a graphic novel that they don't have in a movie or a novel per se. But what was this like where you're really playing that out? Because in the game, you're writing and saying, hey, I'm giving 15 choices to 20 choices that could happen. And then another 20 choices can happen if they make this choice and then this choice. And we're not going to tree out the choices, guys. We're just not going to do it. If somebody wants to do that and is watching this and is good at math, please email it to me because I will actually buy it. But the idea is that in a graphic novel, you have to almost write in a driven way. So what was that like, really writing Beth out and writing her story and the other guy's story and everything that's going on in this fucked up town, for lack of a better word?
It is strange that everybody wants to go there because, I mean, people die a lot in that town. But I mean, I have choose your own adventure board games and books that I've written and had published. And yeah, like you said, planning for and accounting for all the different choices is really difficult, but it's also equally difficult making sure that this story makes sense logically, that it flows and you don't have those weird coincidences, the Deus Ex Machina type stuff. I didn't want any of that. I wanted to, like, if this is going to happen, it's going to happen naturally, or it's not going to be at all. I wanted it to feel like you were actually able to live and breathe in this world. So when you're reading it, when you're along with it, I want you to feel like they're telling you their story, and you're actually there with them.
Yeah, that's an art in of itself. And then even just going further into that as well, because obviously with the game, it's the idea that people are going to naturally pick up the game. They might or may not be gravitated towards comics because some people in tabletopping love comic books as well. And they love anime and they love pop culture because it is sort of a nerd geek thing. But there's people like me where I'm not a big tabletopper, where I have a few tabletop games and I enjoy playing with my friends, but I'm not like an ultra enthusiastic and I need every tabletop and I want to try every tabletop game. But if something catches my eye, I'll play it and pick it up. It's the idea though that I'm more into comics, and then there's a crossover where somebody who's into comics, I'm like, hey, this is interesting. Oh, there's a board game, but then they come into the board game through the comic, and you got to make sure that the products are separate, but they also link to each other. And what's that like for you? Because it goes back to the Bible component and the source material and the manual and the core, where you want to create two separate products that aren't relying on each other. But if you make the town in Louisiana in the comic and the games in Mississippi, and I'm just using those as examples, it's not going to work out well.
That was a big thing. It was because nobody knows where the town is. It's not set anywhere specific, And although it was funny, there is a Slaughterville, Oklahoma that I didn't find out about until after naming it. So that was I thought about going down there and visiting them. So that would have been fun.
It's kind of like where nobody knows where Raccoon City is, but it's a Midwestern town that's usually St. Louis
Yeah,
kind of area. I forget actually the city that's based off of. It's slipping my mind, but it's a Midwestern feel where
yeah.
nobody knows exactly where it is. But obviously, Slaughterville the town has a certain vibe to it and a feel to it.
Hmm. And I can't write anything in the in the graphic novels, the comics that contradicts what's on the character cards or what's on the villain cards. If the villain is going to, like we have in the first one's the Beast Within, I can't have him behaving differently than he would if you were playing through it in the game, because that wouldn't uh, one of the personalities would seem off, and that would, of course, make one look worse compared to the other. Like when we finally get to doing Dracula, or we finally get to doing the Demon Raisers, or Frankenstein, they have to feel the same as they do in here in the
So
game.
is that I'm curious about that because in certain circumstances, boxing in works really well.
Hmm.
Where I love telling a story, and I told a story in a writing class of going through my dorm room as if you were an ant, and that's a whole different ball game. And I mean, we're talking like 3 feet of tracking, and it was like through a lens, and it was a really, really, really weird, experience, but it was a very cool writing thing. And everybody was like, "Oh man, that's kind of cool through the lens." And it was boxing in a position where who would ever describe going through their dorm room like an ant, and from
Yeah,
a perspective. But at the same time, there is problems when you do box yourself in, where it's now, if I said that character is a horrible human being and has major personality flaws that only works in a board game, and then I got to transfer that over to a comic, well, that's a tougher writing job at the same time. So, what has that experience been like for you? Because I would imagine that there's pluses and minuses with it.
yeah. It does give you a sense of structure because you have the skeleton of it all laid out. But like when we had the Beast Within, he's our werewolf, and the werewolf in the game can be any character. So it's nice that that it's variable. So we created the Chief Wallace character based on our police detective in the game, and we made him a standard small town sheriff, you know, but he's also in on everything else that's going on. Like we had the tall thin man. We had I can't say too much, of course, but we have the tall thin man, and he's based on oh, why did my brain freeze there? The Dark Presence. The Dark Presence is like the overall main bad guy of the whole Slaughterville game. So while he is the overall main bad guy, I do have something planned for him that's going to um, change a little bit of what you'll think of him, and you'll see.
I'm not going to push too hard because I did read the first one and it's 48 pages and it's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff's going on in this entire thing and what's sort of happening. And clearly, Beth has a lot to deal with. And
Yeah.
something's going on in this town that brought her back. And I'm not too sure she's going to make it through.
And if you know, like in the very beginning, I had to establish because I didn't want it's in set in more modern times, but I had to establish that cell phones, nothing like that works here. As soon as she crossed over into Slaughterville, 0 bars. Cell phones don't work. That that frees up a lot, but it makes it more challenging for them because they can't just call to the FBI and have somebody come in.
Yeah, but it also eliminates it where there's a whole concept, and feel free to disagree with me, where sometimes eliminating big components gets rid of a challenge to your comic in a story. It's kind of like if I say the power went out, great, nobody has internet. That eliminates a whole big problem of nobody having internet for the next 48 hours in a story. or if you're on a ship in the middle of an ocean, well, you can't just call the police if you have a crisis. You know, it's one of those things where maybe a passing ship will come by, but if you're out in the middle of an ocean, you and whoever's on your ship, you got to deal with it. And a murder goes on, you know for a fact the murderer didn't disappear.
Right.
And so it kind of changes where it's boxing it in, but it also eliminates problems.
Yeah.
And clearly getting rid of cell phones and then being able to look up things or things stop working, you know, that eliminates saying we can't exactly call for help, which adds
Yeah.
to the horror and the suspense.
That's where I was going for with that. You're now on your own. Like if you're lost in the woods, you're lost in the woods. You're not getting GPS on this one. It's yeah.
So obviously, and I also think that there's a concept where people at this point have to buy into a story per se.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read comics, I don't know how you are, I'm reading Sonic the Hedgehog. I know a blue furry hedgehog does not roll into a ball, and his girlfriend Amy Rose does not hit a huge hammer to take out these robotic things. Okay, I know it's not real. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm well aware that this is not a real thing, and that the Resistance is fighting the remainder of Eggman's entire army. But what I do get is the second I say, okay, I'm in the world of Sonic the Hedgehog, and all of this is real in that world, the comic makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people in comics, they're like, it's not accurate. A cell phone would work anywhere. They should have a satellite phone. I'm like, but if you buy into it, you're going to relax a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, you are going to have those that are the well actuallys, and I've tried to account for as much of that as possible, and of course, nothing is ever. I'm not going to be 100% perfect with it, and there may be one or two inconsistencies that I really do try to catch, and I hope by keeping it grounded, by keeping it in the town, keeping the story tight into this group, that we can do that.
And then yeah, I agree. And then obviously, I do want to talk about who's doing the art because that's a big deal. And might be reaching out to him too, but for a different reason. Because I would kill for an interview. But anyway, it's Mark McKenna, and
Yeah.
Mark McKenna has been around for a long time. A lot of Marvel. I don't know if I think legendary Marvel artists can be used in his circumstance because he's worked on a lot of stuff in comics, a lot of stuff for Marvel. I think he did some Deadpool. He might have
Yep.
worked on X-Men. I don't know what else exactly he's worked on. So this is not a good pitch for me to get him on my show. But I digress. So how did you get him, and what was that like really coming out and swinging for the fences in a lot of ways?
That was the funniest thing. He's one of the nicest people you'll meet. And I was walking around. It was me, my two sons, and the one's girlfriend, and we were at a convention near where we live. And sure enough, I saw him. You know, he had a booth there, and I just went up and started talking to him. I liked the book he had. I picked that up, and I'm like, hey, I have this one coming out. Would you want to do a cover for me? Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. And then I forgot my cell phone at his table, so we had to go back, which was a little awkward. Um, but he's like, "Yeah, take the email, get a hold of me." In fact, he's doing the cover for Slaughterville book 2 now, and I'd like to have him do the covers from here on out. So that'd be nice. But real nice guy.
So to even talk about that, because obviously I was looking you, and obviously you sort of found me on my Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
which is always a nice thing when somebody finds me. but I digress. And then I knew that you were a game company, and then I was going through the Indiegogo, and I'm like, oh snap, Mark McKenna did the work,
Yeah.
and I think that's a game changer. And I hate to name drop, but names do sell comics.
Yeah.
You know, a cover. And I'm going to throw out a few names, a Paul Green, an Ebaz, a Sun Kumanaki. If you don't know what company I'm referring to, it starts with a Z, guys.
Yes.
All three of those start with a Z, the company they work for, and they happen to be in Pennsylvania in a little place that's not Pittsburgh, that's the other major city, and it also doesn't start with an H. But I do know the capital of Pennsylvania, so thank God. Anyhow, with having Mark McKenna there, it adds a lot of credibility, I think. And what was that like for you, knowing that I have this game and I have a built-in audience with the game, but to take a step out, when somebody sees Mark McKenna working on a book, that adds a level of credibility, it adds a level of sellability, and I'm going to use it very nicely, but maybe this isn't a bad book. Maybe there's something special here that a legendary artist is saying, I want to work on this.
Right. And you're absolutely right. People don't know me in the comic world. I mean, I've gotten recognized for the game. I've done panels for the game. So people know that I can make board games. And that's cool. Uh, I love everybody that does it. I love everybody. Like, I do Save Against Fear Con every year. My cousin and I, we're going to be doing a hunting board game coming soon. He has a channel called Big Sexy Outdoors. We do some crazy stuff on that thing. You got to see it. And oh yeah, we love the outdoors. We love hunting. We do stuff on there. But you're right. People don't know me in comics, and stepping into that new world, it's they have to trust you to be able to tell a coherent story because they've been burned by bad Kickstarter stories or bad Indiegogo stories before.
Or you notice it's even not even that. Like I backed a project, person's nicest person. They had a great first book and it was a separate thing, but then their other project was just not good. And it wasn't, the art wasn't bad, the writing wasn't up to par, the art was great, and the concept wasn't bad. It was just not a good book.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work in comics, in my opinion. And it works as a TV show more than comics. And there's nothing wrong with that because somebody tried an idea and I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read it, you would have loved it, and that's fine. But I'm not faulting that person. But at the same time, if I don't, the only reason why I backed it is he's a friend and I read one of his other books. If I didn't know who he was, I'd be hesitant. Not to mention that whenever, Paul Green does a cover for a book, I look at it because that thing is going to get my attention. It's going to sell the book. So even if you were known in comics, if all of a sudden you have Greg Capullo, who worked with Scott Snyder on the Batman stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be like, I'm a Greg Capullo fan. I have to pick up this book because I like his work.
Yeah.
And that's what's important as well, is it's that idea too, where even if you are trusted, if I know somebody is a legendary artist or worked on a cover, I'm interested in the game per se.
Yeah. And like I used to, I'm gonna butcher the name, Joe Madureira. If you know him from back in the '90s, I used to like his style. And again, just seeing that knowing he was on it, I would be drawn to it. Like Joe Jusko, I got to meet his best Conan artist I've ever met. That's I used to have a signed Tomb Raider print of his.
I'm a big Tomb Raider. I'm a big Adam Hughes fan. He's got a book coming out this Saturday of one of his most famous covers. But I love B. Martini and her holding an Uzi, Laura Croft.
Mm-hmm.
Sipping. It's so perfect in so many ways.
Yeah.
I like girls in bikinis. So what can I say? I got no problem with that.
There's no fault with this. But yeah, it's
I have a problem.
That's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build and join those two fandoms. Is the people that like the games, maybe you'll check out the book. People that like the books or like comics like I do. God, I've been reading since the '80s because that's my dad was big into comics. Savage Sword of Conan, the magazine versions of Punisher, the black and whites and all, and that's what I grew up reading was those things, and and I just I like that medium because it's a visual medium, but you're also getting character depth, you're getting emotion, and I wanted to give them a good story of how I saw something playing out in Slaughterville, the back end.
And then also, I would imagine that it opens up a lot of possibilities. Where obviously I love, and I don't know how much of my show you watch, but I drop the term all the time, funneletics,
Mm-hmm.
and I love funnels. I love what Kickstarter is. I have actually had discussions about why Kickstarter is flawed, and a lot of people don't like what I say about that, but I legitimately can improve Kickstarter in 15 ways that would probably increase sales by 50% or more.
Yeah.
Kickstarter, the brief explanation of that is that Kickstarter is a funnel that has 15 exits all at the same time, and it doesn't have the ability to upsell or downsell upon immediate, and backer kit or even the add-on option is a start to do that, but it's not bringing you through it step by step by step by step by step and then checking you out. Even if you check you out and you were to get built 30 days later, if you did it that way, you would be exposed to everything and it would increase sales way more than what backer kit would increase sales by. But that's what ClickFunnels does. And
Yeah.
ClickFunnels is a better Kickstarter by definition. But I digress on that. But one of the things is that the book, and the reason why I bring this term up is that it's an entry point for people who don't know this game or who are not into tabletop in games. You're like, cool, what's this? And then you could sell them a 48 pager and like, oh, that's a cool story. And you're like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a game where you could play some of these characters that you see and actually sort of have this story be told with you and your friends.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, you have people who are into the game who have everything, but then you go to a con and they see a new product, and that's the other thing too.
Yeah, because we have Beth and John here in the game, and that was again the promos that we gave out for the book. But yeah, exactly like you're saying, it's what I would also like to see, and again is off topic a little bit, I know, but I
Oh
like.
no, it's fun. It's
I
your
enjoy,
interview.
I said I enjoy talking to you, and I would do this just without an interview. I would just sit and talk with you that way. But I would like to see them do more of the, hey, you like this? Here's somebody else that's similar to it, and I think their Kickstarter recommended or whatever they call it projects we love often goes to the ones that it always goes to. You know what I mean?
I am very much a type of person where I like to go off the beaten path.
Mm-hmm.
In which that, and I love Paul Green, and I make tons of money with Paul Green. I've sold Sun Kumanakis. And look, I've had some on my show. I've had Keith Garvey on my show, and there's nothing against them. But I'm also looking for Generation 2.0 or Generation 3.0. And there's a list of artists that I want variant covers from that nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
But the second their cover drops, I want to be their first covers. And I understand from a money standpoint because I am a comic book investor. I run an eBay store. I move and buy, sell a lot of pop Funkos and comics. That I'm looking not for what's been done, but what is the future. And I have gone through Kickstarters and Kickstarters that obviously I'm privileged because I get to interview a lot of people. And unfortunately, I do have to go off the beaten path per se. But it's also the idea that that's how I find new books. But I also do find myself and I have to stop myself from backing all my friends' projects as well.
Yeah.
And I get that. And it's a problem because I don't think Kickstarter knows, and I don't think there's a human touch in Kickstarter as far as certain, because it's algorithm games.
Yeah.
You know? And that's a problem because I hate to say it, but at least 50% of the projects on Kickstarter are average, if not below average. But they get funded, and it's nothing against them. Some of my friends have average projects. And now, don't get me wrong, if you were to put their projects against the 90s, they would smoke the 90s by far. Or you put something up against DC, as far as artwork, you're smoking that. But again, it's not anything spectacular, and it's not a very open and nice conversation to have. I hate to say it.
Right. But sometimes we need to have those, you know? And sometimes the hard conversation can be the one that actually helps them improve the most. But you were talking about a human perspective and how that was lacking with an algorithm, and I completely get that. But that was one of the things I really loved about Mixum was when I uploaded the files, somebody got a hold of me and they're like, "Hey, do you want to edge it over this way just a little bit to make it fit on the page better?"
So your bleeding works.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, somebody got back to me. Somebody actually interacted with you, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And I was telling them, and they're like, it was just amazing. I'm not used to that with a company, and yeah, I told them flat out, you're going to be printing the rest of mine.
I like Mixum, and the reason why I think I got my sponsorship deal with them is I picked up a phone and I called them.
Mm-hmm.
I sent them an email. I said, "Hey, why don't we have a phone call?" And I think that's how, whether they continue with me for a third round or not, or whenever my next sponsor, I'm like, "Hey, let's have a phone call." And there was another company that I reached out to before Mixum got a hold of me, and they never returned my phone call. And I said, "When are we doing it? You know, you call me, we'll work from there." And they never returned my phone call. And again, I like to pick up a phone and I like to say, "Let's talk about it." And
Exactly.
when I have an issue, and I'm having an issue with a company, I'm not going to get too much into it on the air, not yet at least, but I want a phone call because in 5 minutes we can solve the issue in a phone call. In an email, it's going to take weeks, if not months.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mixum, from people have mixed reviews about Mixum, but people who I've sent to Mixum, I would say 98% of them are pretty happy with Mixum.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me happy because they're a sponsor and I'm referring them business. So.
Yeah.
But I enjoy Mixum and what they print, and it's something that's they're a good company, and I enjoy what they print.
Yeah. It was Mark, when he got the book, because I sent him a copy, of course, because he did the cover. He's like, I can't believe this. It's because the cover was thick, the pages were thick, and it was. He goes, is that like 60 pages? I'm like, dude, it's 48. It's just that quality. So yeah, it's pretty cool. This next one, the one we have coming up, that they're gonna. They just finished drawing page one. I'll send you the line art for it, or I'll send you the color art when it's done. They did the cover, and that one's up to 56 pages because I had to expand because that's where the story went. I'm not going to cut it off at a page count.
So let's even talk about that because that's the thing about indies now is that obviously money is money.
Of
Yeah,
course.
where everything is cut off at money. There's only so much I'm going to do on my show with the money that I have, and a lot of the money that's going into Kickstarter minus money for a 6-pack. I need it. After I funded on Kickstarter, I needed a 6-pack. It was in the budget, guys. I had 5 left. I'm not that bad, I promise. But a lot of the money's going into covering StreamYard, and it's going back into just making this show better. But there's only so much I can do with the money that I got. I got $855. Kickstarter took out like 10% of that, give or take, and then I have like $780 left. And it's the idea that there's only so much you can do with $780, but all that money's going right back into the project. So money could dictate everything, but I also don't have any parameters that I can only do an hour interview, for instance. I could go for 3 hours at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that is very cool about indie. And so what is that like for you? No one saying, hey, I don't have to do 22 pages. I don't have to do 24 pages. I don't have a 26-page deadline to fit everything in and then have to break it up or mess up the story or write with a cliffhanger, or I could write an extended thing. And then also when you're crowdfunding, you could justify charging $15 for a 48-pager, or you could justify charging $10 and you can be competitive versus DC or Marvel, which are charging like $5 a book now.
Yeah, and that was really nice because in book 2, there was a scene in there that when I had it at 48, it was cut off, and I'm like, no, this needs more. This needs to be explained. So again, add 4 pages in. I got it to 52, and then it did. It gave me the room to breathe and really tell the story and not make it a forced ending, like you were saying.
Because it's something that I appreciate about indie is that there's a lot more flexibility in what can be done with indie comics and what can be presented and all that stuff. And I think it's very, very important that that is really allowed and stories can be told the way they should be told.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, I mean, it's a game changer. And obviously, you got a lot of other stuff going on with this too. Obviously, book 2 is happening.
Yeah.
It's just continuing the story, and then presumably you have book 3 and 4. And I'm assuming as long as you're making money with this, or it continues to add to the entire world of Slaughterville, that you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, right now we have it set up to go to book 12. And yeah, if we decide to continue after that, there's definitely room to improve with as many villains and things as we can add. Like we said, drag and drop. But we also have. I made a card game called Gods of Metal. Think like Brutal Legend, but yeah, that style. Okay. I was talking to the artist that did that's doing Slaughterville now, and I'm like, dude, I have this heavy metal book that I'm dying to get out of my head that I need to put on paper, and they're like, yeah, we'd love to do it. So I'm really looking forward to the Gods of Metal graphic novel coming out too. So that's yeah. I just love telling stories. And if I can bring somebody a smile to somebody's face, just from either the games or from reading these, that's all I care about. I don't care about money. Yeah, money's a byproduct.
I like money.
Money's a byproduct of for me for doing that. Don't get me wrong. I'm in the. I'd love money too, but it's the driver for me is I want you to enjoy the story.
Yeah, well, my driver is I just want to be invited to a con as a guest, and I want my meals taken care of. I am dirt cheap. I will happily pay for my own hotel room. It's something that I've wanted for the last 10 years. I used to do a lot of panels at anime cons, and that's all I really wanted is I just wanted a little bit of respect. Seriously, a little bit of respect goes a long way. Now I want to be paid bank. I don't care about that. Screw that. I'm open about it. I want to be paid. And I want to be paid nicely, because I'll do an anime panel for free. It's the waiting around that you're paying me for. And that's how I operate now. So welcome to the club, everybody. You're not paying me anymore for this. You're paying me for me waiting around to do this. So, but I digress. And I am curious, though, because obviously once you go from a board game into a graphic novel, you're still doing the board game stuff, and those expansions are going to continue. And I think that no matter what happens with this graphic novel, if it's once a year or twice a year, those expansions are going to continue, and the game's going to keep growing, and it's going to evolve. And then there's probably going to be maybe even possibly a spin-off of the game at some point, and a different module and all that stuff. But with And I'm back.
Okay.
Does this, everybody? Everybody listening on podcast format, if you see a 30-second pause or more or less, my internet went out. Eventually, we're about a year out from podcast land fully. But what is that like? Because this opens up the door for more media in a lot of ways. Because graphic novels and comics are a gateway to TV, to movies, to radio dramas, audio dramas, podcast stuff. I can't think of anything else. Novelizations is a big one. So what is that like for you? And now that's on the table, for lack of a better word.
I mean,
it's not on top of the table. I'll give you that.
It's yeah. It would be nice. Now I've had one of my books was actually taken to HBO, and they had it up, and they considered it, but they said it wasn't mainstream enough because again, horror and things are not mainstream. So they passed on that. But hey, somebody looked at it, right? And all of that would be nice. But again, my whole thing, as long as I can tell you a good story, or if I can give you a medium like the games to tell a good story for yourself, and you have fun with your friends and family doing it, great. I'm perfectly happy. If we one day see Amazon Prime or Hulu Slaughterville TV series, I'd be over the moon for it. But I'm not out actively pitching or anything.
And then obviously, everybody wants TV. Everybody wants, of
course,
TV money. It's also credibility. It's also concept of proof in a lot of ways, I think, as well. And even forgetting about the money. If I produced a comic, I would want a TV show, because then that's gonna just get that book in front of more people by nature. And if you just want more readers, that's pretty much sort of a shoo-in way. Nobody cared about The Walking Dead until there was a television show, and then everybody cared about The Walking Dead. All the true believers were like, The Walking Dead's amazing.
Yeah.
You reading, And all those people made a lot of money. You were ahead of the curve because Walking Dead #1 graded is an expensive book.
Yeah.
But in a 9.8 or a 9.9, that book is, whew, it's a pricey book.
Yeah.
But it's
Then
the
we
idea
had
that
Invincible, and
Invincible is another pricey book.
people don't remember Britt from back in the day with him. And
Oh man, there's a lot of stuff that he's done, but really, really, really good stuff. But it's the idea that a television show definitely propped up The Walking Dead.
yep.
And so just on a business level, I just want, if I was to write a comic and I have a few ideas, I would love a television show, not necessarily for the money, and the money's nice, but more for the clout and also people saying, oh, this was done by Andrew Davis. Oh, Andrew Davis, he has a comic book. Let me go read that now and let me go see what the comic book looks like. And I think that makes this 100% sense because, again, it's just getting more eyes on the original product, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But I do have one more question, and then we're going to go into things outside of this entire thing for a few minutes. But obviously, horror is a very interesting genre right now in comics, where a lot of people are doing it. Boom Studios is a big horror company. Second Sight Publishing is a big one right now, and there's a few others. And it's gotten a lot bigger. I'm not a big horror reader. I tend to want to read superheroes and more fun stuff. But why do you think horror has finally sort of caught on a little bit and it's drawing a lot of readers to it?
Wow, that is a good question. That's
I mean, you look at companies like Scout are doing horror, Boom
yeah.
Studios, and I don't know why either because I'm not a big horror fan. And something like is killing the children or something slaughtering the children or
Yeah.
even sort of Department of Truth to some degree is a little bit of that.
I
And
like I like that one. That one was Department of Truth was pretty neat. I was reading it because I like conspiracies a bit too. As far as I'm gonna have a game based on those too. But I mean, my first movie that I remember was 5 years old. My dad had a laser disc of Friday the 13th. Okay, this is way back, and so I've grown up constantly with horror, and I think the kind of thing is happening now. You've had the generations of people. I hate to use the word normies, but getting into paranormal activity, that style of film, and then it follows the remake of Texas Chainsaw, and which I heard wasn't that good, but I didn't get to see it yet. Of course, Halloween comes out every year. Same thing with the Saw movies. The Saw movies, the torture porn was a, a, a big driving factor in pushing people to be more accepting and interested in the horror genres. So I think that's really what's been drawing a lot of people into it.
because I don't know the answer. I just know that horror comics are doing well, and as
Yeah.
a comic book investor, I pick up certain issue ones because they're going to sell, and I know that I can get a 10 to 12x rate of return on them sometimes. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm about the money, guys. I'm not going to pretend. Um, hey, you know what? I have something that's working, and I'm not going to complain and break it. If it works, I'm not complaining. Um,
Absolutely.
but I digress right there. But I do want to back out of everything that's going on with your board games and the comic and what's going on next and all the media. And I am curious where you view crowdfunding because crowdfunding has become a very interesting beast. And I am very mixed on crowdfunding. Obviously, I funded on Kickstarter. I'm beyond thankful for everybody who pledged all 38 people. But I also recognize that it is not the be all end all. I have outside sponsors for a reason. And
Mhm.
I technically am making just as much money from my outside sponsors right now as I am on crowdfunding. And once I figure out how to do outside sponsors even better, I'm going to make even more money per se. And I get that there almost has to be a healthy balance, but it seems that Kickstarter and crowdfunding is being used in three ways: a pre-order form. You want to have and there's nothing wrong with a pre-order form. Look, I'm a pre-order form by definition on my campaign. It's being also you saying, hey, I got this idea and I'm 30% of the way there, and I got this concept and I need the money to finish the other 70, and everybody's gonna get to see this film or see this comic. Or it's now being you saying, look, I just need the money, and this is seed money to start a business essentially, and that this is my business. And pretty much instead of me working, I am crowdfunding a piece of my publishing house, and I own a company, and we are running it for the idea of just printing the book and semi-paying everybody. And I've seen it in those three ways, and I'm curious how you view it, and both on comics, board games, and even sustainability. Because hate to break it to everybody, but I'm very bearish on the way the economy is going to go, and we have seen inflation get very, very complicated in the last few months.
Oh, sure. People are going to end up tightening their belts, and that's a given. I think as far as the board game side, you're going to see a lot of these big ones that are $150, $200 a game because they have 20,000 miniatures with them, or are going to start dropping off simply because people are either not going to afford it or they're not going to want to spend that much right away. But yeah, I'm not going to mention company names, of course, just for.
Oh yeah, I don't want to get sued.
Exactly.
I don't have that in my budget.
Exactly.
This is not that type of show. People might think it is, and I greatly appreciate the compliment if you do. But I am not type of that show, so please don't mention any company names. I can mention
other than mine. I'll mention mine and Big Sexy Outdoors because we'll mention Big Sexy. That's my cousin. But companies that are obviously making a lot of money on games and so on, to the point where, like you mentioned, it does seem like a pre-order store where they could do it without. It's been my opinion that I believe that they actually take away from the independent creators that this platform was designed for. And now I know, again, the larger projects do bring recognition to the hobby as a whole, but at what point do you have to step away and say, okay, guys?
I've had discussions about this, and I correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll use Berserk as an example. I said, look, if your project was on during Berserk, you weren't competing with Keanu Reeves. But it wasn't a net positive for Kickstarter, because maybe if he brought in 70,000 fans, maybe 4,000 of them stayed on Kickstarter and backed a few more projects. But the majority of those people were not there for Kickstarter. Kickstarter has their email. Kickstarter's net worth increases by definition, so they have more data points, but they don't have more active data points. The majority of those people were not around. Now, if your project was featured right below it, people were scrolling through, you got a great bump up. And that's cool. And I don't have a problem with Boom Studios playing on Kickstarter, but we can't actively sit here in an honest conversation and say Keanu Reeves was a net beneficial position for Kickstarter on a comic indie basis level. And that's not saying that he doesn't belong. He has every right to be on there. Boom has every right to be on there. No problem. But when you look at it, it opened Pandora's box, and nothing bad happened. Like, nobody got killed.
Right.
It's the idea that it also, when these big companies come on here, how many people are there pledging who are already there on Kickstarter, and how many people do they bring in, and then what's that retention rate? And there could be a project that has a 70% retention rate where they pick up a board game of Avatar: The Last Airbender and they buy 14 other board games. Like, I didn't know this existed. Oh my God. Wow. My mind is blown. And I'm sure it has happened with certain big projects.
Right.
He's come in and been like, oh, there's 4 other comics I want. And that's great. And that could happen. But that's probably not the norm. And I don't think, that's not saying that somebody doesn't belong, but there also is that component of it. And I don't know if that's where you were going with it.
You're right. And again, like, people are looking at Berserk, again, just because that's the one we were talking about. They're looking at it for Keanu, because Keanu's awesome, you know?
He's great. If I could get him on this show, oh, it'd be fantastic. I would just stop right there. The guys, Pop Anime Comics is over. Everybody else, I'm sorry. It was just the way it's gone. We're done. And then
Yeah.
we all leave.
But you've got to look at that like people were there to buy Keanu's book. They weren't there because many of them, I should say, may not have been there because of the love of comics. Now, I was at a convention in the late '90s, and it. I was sitting in the lobby, and who sits next to me? But a guy who swears he wasn't Nicolas Cage, but it was Nicolas Cage. No, it's not me. I'm like, okay. So we just sat there talking for a couple hours about comics, because he's into it. But he didn't want you to know it was him. It was funny. He goes, no, I double for him all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. But, yeah. But yeah, and again, same thing with big game designers. They're going out for the name, or some people are going out for resell on eBay instead of actually enjoying the game itself, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Look, you know what it is? I completely get it. I buy and sell comics. There are covers and books I don't read.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're worth money, but I'm also a variant guy, so it's understandable.
One in
It's a little
25s.
bit different if you buy a cover A and you're out for resale versus if you're buying a $50 cover that's limited to 100 issues. A little bit different, but
Yeah.
I digress. That's neither here nor there. That's like semantics. But I get the argument completely.
And another thing I found, and I've made mention of it to the individuals, are those that are on like the forums, the groups, and so on for indie comic creators. Hey, there you go. That's my cousin. Yeah. But what I've said to them, and I've said it often, is I see you guys and gals and so on, saying, "Oh yeah, the book looks great. I love that book." But how many times have you actually gone out and backed it then? Like when I saw your Kickstarter, I'm like, "Yeah, this looks cool. This dude wants he wants to do interviews. He's getting out and he wants to meet the people." I'm like, "I like this." Holy crap! He actually has a thing where he'll do an interview with you. I'm on this. That's a guarantee. I'm there.
Yeah. Before this season, 262 interviews are under my belt in about 24 months, which is crazy.
Yeah.
That's
See?
a lot. That's a
It
lot.
is.
It's a lot.
I saw
And
you have one
that's
up
why
after
I'm
me.
asking now for money to be a guest, and that's why I was getting shit for it because I'm like, well, you know what? These other people might not be asking, but how many interviews are they really doing? And how are they really interviewing? And who actually really knows what the fuck they're talking about? And I'm
Yeah.
not saying I know exactly what I'm talking about because I don't. Not every time, but I know enough, and I've been doing this for almost 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually care about indie comics and pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I care about freedom of speech, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Hey,
think.
I'm a big the comic book legal defense fund. I'm a big fan of them.
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed
Yeah.
Dennis Kitchen. I mean, we go way into it. I'm just saying. But that digress right there before I get me and you canceled.
That's all right. I don't worry about that. That's.
I'm not. I'm pretty much cancel proof right now because Mixon doesn't care as long as I return them capital, which I've done extensively, and that's all they really care about with me.
And but yeah, like I said to them, and I just said, if you're going to come on here, at least give a like, a share, something, just because it might not mean anything to you, but that might mean a lot to this person who's like, oh man, somebody shared my project, you know, and if you can, go out and back their books, man. If you like it, I'm not saying back every one because God, there's books out there I can't stand. They have themes or concepts that I'm just not into, and that's fine. But if you like it, back it.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of I appreciate shares. I really
Yeah.
do. Shares mean a lot. Where it is, I shoot out a lot of stuff in Facebook groups, and a few people like it, but I'm like, you know what it is, if you can't afford to buy an interview on me, or you don't want a guaranteed spot, or you want an interview and you hit me up whenever you have a Kickstarter, but you haven't shared out any of my interviews, like what in my rational right mind is going to say you should be on my show?
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that, and people have brands and all that stuff, but Conversations in Pop Culture, Pop Anime Comics, which technically owns Conversations in Pop Culture, my cute little elf is the Pop Anime Comics elf. Like my brand and me are synonymous, so
Mm-hmm.
I control my brand, and I know certain people don't control their brand. I got somebody said, "Oh, your business is not my brand, so I can't share it out," and I was like, "Wait a second." you know, that's kind of a crazy thought to me when I
Mm.
was supporting you and I've spent $300-400 with you in the last 3 years, and you can't throw me a dollar or a tweet. Like a little off-putting to me. And the person wasn't mean about it, but like they just shot me back a message. And my solution is, and I'm gonna be very, very honest, is like, you're dead to me. That's what it amounts to. So if you can't share out my interview, let alone, and I understand money's tight with everybody, but
Sure.
and then you ask me for an interview, why would I say that you should come on? What
Mm-hmm.
rationale is this working in? Because you can't do the bare minimum of something that is free. That
Yeah.
could change and could get me another 10 views in your network
Mm-hmm.
on an interview. We're talking legitimately a click of a button on Facebook or a click of a button on Twitter. We're
Yeah.
not talking about complicated stuff. We're talking about just putting an interview in it, let alone your interview that you did with me a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
which is even crazier that people won't share an interview they did.
That
That's
is,
crazier to me.
yeah. Yeah. I already shared this one, the preview for it, to the two Facebook posts. I have a TikTok thing too because I just do quick videos once in a while. To the YouTube channel, I'll link it to that too, and because I have the Laughing Road YouTube channel. Yeah, and of course, I'm sure Big Sexy will share for us. We got a few things going on there. Yeah, but yeah, if you can't, and it's not about just reciprocation. It's about just basic common sense and respect. You know.
Well, I'm easy. If you want to be on my show, there's a million things you can do. You could send me a copy of your book. You could send me a digital copy of your book. Hell, you should probably send me a physical copy of your book, especially if you have issue 1 and you're kickstarting, issues 2 and 3. It's like, hey, Andrew, what is your address? I got
Yeah.
it.
I was just about to say that because I know I completely lost all track of time with doing all the games and everything else, and I'm like, I forgot to send him that. So I need to get your address from you, and I will shoot you a copy of the Slaughterville 2 as well. I know you said you're not as big into board games as I am, but I'll make sure you get a copy of that. And if you like heavy metal stuff, I'll send you Gods of Metal too.
I enjoy heavy metal. I enjoy the movie too, but that's a different discussion as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm 29, so
Okay.
heavy metal is way before my time, but it's an amazing movie for the music component of it, just alone. But yeah, I'll give you my address after all this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like my whole thing is that, like, if you want to buy curry with me, there's a million ways how you buy curry with me and buy favor with me. And you know what is one of the things is that send me a digital before you even ask for an interview. Be like, hey, here's a digital comic. I know you do a bunch of people. If you like it, maybe I can get on your show. Because do you want to hear the craziest thing? If you send me a digital and if your book is average, I'll be like, yeah, let's do it. In which not even good, and I'm being very honest about this. If it's average, if you took the liberty to say, I'm not expecting anything back, I'm like, yeah, let's see what we can figure out, and let's make it happen. But also, I'm right now being massively selective this year
Yes.
because people have paid, and then out of the rest of people who haven't paid, and I'm saying to some people, I'm saying, look, I'm sorry, but your project should not be next to somebody else's project. And I'm not because your project is not necessarily horrible, but I'm looking for a certain caliber right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have to protect my sponsors and I have to protect a variety of other people and make sure I do right by them. And I don't want to put an inferior product next to a superior product, for lack of a better word. And I know that
Yeah.
sounds fucked up what I just said, But if you think that's not what corporate America does, that you think that's not what advertisers do, you think that's not what influencers do, well, welcome to, you know, the truth on how the sausage is made. I just ruined everybody's day.
No, but yeah, if you, I don't know what you got to read as far as the one I sent you, but yeah, I can't wait to see what you think of it, and you know.
Yeah, no. I read a good chunk of it.
Did you?
I did not get to read all of it though. So I'm
Okay.
running around, and I decided to only read it like an hour ago.
I know the feeling. Believe me, I know. It's like, hey, did you get to look at this for me yet? I'm like, no, I didn't get to.
I'll admit that I was setting up my Xbox. I'm like, oh snap, I should probably read this. I haven't set up my Xbox in 15 months, and I'm like, yeah, I should probably read this. It might be a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I did read the Indiegogo. I read the Kickstarter, but I digress right there. You know, I'm a very, very, very unprofessional individual. 90% of the time, just 90%. So it's the 10% that gets me sponsorships.
There you go. I'll be honest with you, Indiegogo. Let's see. As far as the company goes, they were fine. I had no issues with the Indiegogo company, but I didn't have, because most of my people, the citizens, were on Kickstarter, and I'm like, I should have gone there.
You should go Kickstarter the next round.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Yep. I asked the guys.
In fact, what you should do is you should bring your first book on Kickstarter right now. That's what you should really do.
I thought about it. I thought about popping that on there.
I'll give you a great example. I don't know if you know who Mike Barron is by any chance.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mike's great. He's been on 1.5 times because nice. My comic book hangouts that I do every once in a while are a half an interview. they count only half. But he did, I think, like 30,000 on Indiegogo, and he did like 90 to 100,000 on Kickstarter, which is with a Thin Blue Line.
Thin Blue Line. I backed that one. Yep.
And so I mean, he did really well on Kickstarter, and he was on like Fox and Friends, and
oh wow.
I mean that really probably helped push the book, which is kind of crazy to think that Fox and Friends was promoting it's their only Kickstarter that they like featured, and
wow.
I think it's like the only one that's ever been featured so far, and I just think it's pretty funny because it's like the least likely place. If you said Fox and Friends would be pushing out a Kickstarter, I'd be like, who knew? Like,
yeah, that I would not have called that.
I would have not taken that bet. That's all I'm gonna say.
No.
I think Fox and Friends should just feature a Kickstarter every week. They should. Their ratings would go all the way up. Just they would blow morning television just straight out of the water. It'd be great. But again, I'm getting both you and me canceled today.
Yeah, they don't. I'm not scared. Have you thought about that yourself? And again, I just that's how my brain works. When I get an idea, it's going to come out. Of doing a comics coming out on Kickstarter or Indiegogo thing.
I am probably gonna bring what I did on Kickstarter to Indiegogo, and I know that people do that, and then they have exclusive Indiegogo covers because why wouldn't they want to get an extra $5,000 out of the project, and it doesn't cost me any more money. So I have metal cards and I have postcards. Mm-hmm. Those are the only two things I'm going to offer, and I have to print 121 of my metal cards anyway. Mm-hmm. And my partner and my business partner, and he's a friend of mine. We're not intimate. I want to make that crystal clear. Me and my friend DJ Croft. He has a lovely fiance, and the two of them are going to be happily together. And he's going to be up in Wizard World in Philly in April as a guest, which is cool for me because it means my brand's going to increase due to his. But you know, the whole thing is that he's getting 60, I'm getting 60 of whatever else we send out to the people who backed it. And then if I just go on Indiegogo, you know, I'm going to have 60 metal cards that were already paid for due to the Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. So that's the beautiful thing where it doesn't cost me any more money to do that.
Because like you said, you have ghosts. I have, what's that?
No, I'm good. I don't have ghosts. I'm just making sure.
because I have the art already done for the Indiegogo campaign. I can just drop it into a Kickstarter story, and there it is.
I mean, most people, what they do is that they pick one platform and then they might go and get extra out of the second. And it's just the idea that they're hitting a niche and certain people won't back a project on Kickstarter. Now, I personally back both. I don't care. My friend has Shotgun Samurai. It's an Indiegogo
Nice.
book. I'm like, man, what a great concept. A brilliant, brilliant book. But I digress. But yeah, there's a good chance I might drop what I did and the exact same writing with a few tweaks. And yeah, that's kind of what I might do for this. And I might do it March or April because
Nice.
I can get 15 more guests paying me $20 a pop. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And if I have certain other things in place, which I may have by April, I might be able to sell a whole different product on Indiegogo that is bank that might make me like an extra $3,000 for the year. So
Good.
the other thing too is that if you know what you did wrong on one of the platforms, you could fix it for the other. And that's the other thing too.
I know exactly what I did wrong on Indiegogo. I looked into shipping, and shipping to the U.S. told me that priority was like $15. So I had $15 book with $15 shipping. That's why I didn't get as many as I think I could have. But I found out now you can get it for $5 shipping within the U.S. Now, granted, Canada is still like $20 to ship. Same thing with the UK is still like
International is a pain in the ass.
monstrous, yeah. But if I can lower it down to $5 shipping for the U.S., you know,
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm expensive on eBay for shipping, but there's a reason why. I ship in Gemini's and I ship $60, $70 books. And so it's insurance for a reason. And that's a different discussion. But unless you're shipping a variant, if somebody ordered and you had a $300 variant comic, you
oh yeah,
might want to insure that bad boy.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
and you might do that at your expense versus the buyer's expense. Because
Especially for that. What was cool, but yeah. So I think I'm gonna do that. I think I will relaunch book one because again, mix them. They'll print out another however many copies you need right on the top here, and that's going to be nice. Plus, I'm never selling this. Don't get me wrong, but Mark actually sent me the line art for the first cover that he did. So that's in a shadow box hanging up in my room. That's not going anywhere.
No. It's.
But that was so cool.
People love originals. There are cover artists who send originals with their thing, and it's really cool. And there's a lot of cool stuff. But honestly, we've been speaking for an hour and a half.
Oh,
Covered a
sorry
lot of
about that.
stuff, and got another interview in like 25 minutes.
Nice. All right.
with somebody who does horror as well. So I guess it's a horror themed interview night for me, but I do want to give you a chance to self promote because I know you're going to be back at least one more time, if not two more times.
Yeah, we have 2 more interviews and the live read. Yep.
So you're going to be back at least 2 more times.
And we always have next year too. We'll be here next year if you want.
Oh
You won't be
yeah.
back.
I don't know what's going to happen next year. I don't know what's going to happen in July. So you know what? I don't know what's going to happen in 3 hours from now. So actually, I do know what's going to happen. I have a Dr. Pepper, and I have some rum, and I have some limes, and I have my Xbox set up as soon as I figure out what my Hotmail address is, and then I can go play some type of game. But I need recommendations, which I'm sure many people will be happy to share with me. But anyway, where can people find you, find your book, go bother you on eBay, because I put that link up there. Go check out you on YouTube and a variety of other places.
Yeah, we're Laughing Rogue on YouTube. We have the Laughing Rogue Games on Facebook. I believe we're Laughing Rogue Games on the TikTok because I just put little stupid videos up like, hey, I was thinking about this, about this for the game. I do small reviews of other board games on there too. Yeah, and that's pretty much where we're at. We have laughingrogue.com. I think I sent you the links somewhere.
I was running around.
Oh yeah, I know the feeling. But that's mainly where we're at. And look, this year we're going to be doing, like I said, we're going to be doing Slaughterville 3, April. 2022. That's not far away. Then we're going to have the book 2 right after that, as soon as that ends. Now that you mention it again, I really like that idea of relaunching book 1 on Kickstarter, so we can get all of the citizens to have access to it that way. In the fall, Big Sexy and I are going to be doing Gone Hunting. That's our hunting board game. I have a film noir board game it's a choose your own adventure. It's L.A. noir, but you're playing the board game of it. And a buddy of mine, Kevin, he and I are doing a game called Killjoy, where this girl Joy saw something she wasn't supposed to see, and now she's the people she saw are trying to find and hunt and kill her. It's your job to get her out of an office building, but she's completely aloof and just wanders at random. So you're trying to lead her to the exit, but she's like, "That's a nice flower," and she'll walk over to this. Yeah. Meanwhile, that you have all these killers coming in trying to take her out. So it's going to be done humorous. So it's not going to be something overly serious. But yeah, that's stuff that's on the plate for this year.
We got a lot of stuff going on, and we keep saying it, is that obviously probably the best thing for everybody to do is follow you on social media.
Absolutely.
Follow you on Facebook, check out your website, follow you on Kickstarter, if they can, because I know every creator is different. You know, some people allow following, some people don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I allow it. Yeah, completely.
And on top of all that, obviously, you know, if you're an indie content creator, board game, comic writer, comic producer, artist, obviously I'm a podcaster, you know, one of the best ways is you have to support people, and you have to support people financially. And so you got to back and buy their products. And it does make a difference. And whether you're into comics or you're into board games, either or is fine for Chris and his company and everything that he does. But every little bit helps. And then when they go on Kickstarter, they go on Indiegogo. One of the things is that backing those projects on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or in any crowdfunding platform also matters, because that's how these things get made. And that's how, you know, things get expanded and built. And it goes a long way. $1 goes a long way, and $100 goes a long way. And no amount is too small. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then obviously, as I stated, you know, I know money's tight with people. Inflation's coming. It could be good. It could be bad. We don't exactly know how bad it's going to be or how good it's going to be. It could go either way, but we know, it's going to be bad, guys. It's going to be bad. I'm telling you, just brace for impact is all I'm going to say. I would say "Come and Major Tom," but I don't think that's an appropriate song for this circumstance. I am way too young to be referencing that. But even still, sharing out projects goes a long way. And it sometimes is just as important as cash and backing projects, because you could share it in front of the right person and you never, ever know who's going to find it and who's going to back it. And that's something that's majorly important. As far as I'm concerned and what I'm doing, obviously, you can pay me to be on this show. Absolutely. I appreciate money. And if you're interested and you want to be on this show, there's really only two ways. You have to have a really interesting project that I like and that I think is actually either hasn't been discovered or is slaying dragons, or you can prime the wheel and pay me. My Buy Me a Coffee link is up there, and I'm going to be raising my rates sooner rather than later. You can also buy live reads if you so feel that, you know, you want to advertise on my show. That's something you can do. And yeah, you could like, share, subscribe to the show. Check it out. Check out my Facebook channel. Check out my YouTube channel. It's all Pop Anime Comics. Follow me on Twitter, Pop Anime Comics. And I just appreciate all support. I also have some sick metal cards that whatever is left over probably from the Kickstarter and my Indiegogo, it looks like this. And you could actually hopefully get them up in April if you're in Philly, with my friend DJ, who's on that book, and he does the male Tomb Raider, and he basically reimagined Lara Croft as a guy, which is dope. It's dope. That's why his name's DJ Croft, and there's only 121 of those metal cards, and they'll be up on my eBay store at some point, which is Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. So that's everything with me. Unless I owe you money, you know, you could hit me up, bother me, ask me questions. All that stuff. If I owe you money, I'm going to quietly walk away, and there's somebody, and there is no red dot on me that I owe money to, so we're safe. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
No, I really appreciate getting to hang out. It did not feel like an hour and 40 minutes here. It flew by. I enjoyed the talk, and I can't wait to do it again. I look forward to hearing what you think. Yeah,
no, I'm looking forward to doing it 2 more times too. It's going to be fun,
Yeah.
and hopefully we're just not doing it tomorrow because my voice is going to be worse.
No, I need time to get everything ready. And besides, I'm going to definitely don't forget to send me your address so I can send you these out. I don't want to forget that because again, with everything else going on, I don't want to forget.
I'm going to go do that. And on that note, everybody, that is a wrap.
It's been fun.